Welcome to Behind the Door, the show that addresses the real issues facing businesses today. With your hosts, business intuitive and corporate innovator couple, Suz and Mac.
Hello and welcome to Behind the Door, where Mac and I are going to dig a bit deeper in the business minds of our wonderful guests. Mac, today we have an exciting man that took a $13 million business to $100 million, and you'll never guess what the business was. But before we get to that, teaser, you know there are thousands of books on the market, and some are fluff and some have great info. I have my favorites, which you know, one of them is The Oz Principle about accountability. And I know you have yours as well. And now I have a new favorite to add to my list. It was written by our guest, and it's The Principles of the Cartel Disruption, about accelerate and maximize performance.
Yes, I read it, and I think there's a lot of great thoughts in there, great ideas, things to do. Some will apply to all businesses, some will, other businesses may not see it initially, they'll pick parts of it.
I think executives will see a lot of information in there too. I mean, there's so much. He offers matrix, and oh my gosh, he's got such good information in there. I'm really excited.
I don't do a lot of books, as you know. I do mostly articles and like McKinsey and that kind of thing. I've got a few that I really like.
Yeah, you do.
I recommend, like you have that one. Studs Terkel, Working is an interesting one that I think managers should read to learn more about people that work in the businesses. I go on, but anyway,
Good to Great, Build to Last, Thriving on Chaos, blah, blah, blah. We got a whole shelf of them that I think is really nice to have as a reference. So, Well, we talk with businesses all the time, and I'm asking what book, article have they read last, or a conference they've gone to. And of course, in today's world, it's webinars, everything, or some form of social media. So it's so important for our own growth. Now, saying that, some of our older books are still as relevant today as they were 15 to 20 years ago, which that means it was a really good book.
Yes, we won't go any further into that right now. I could make a whole 5-minute discussion about that easily. Let's get started, and let me introduce today's guest, David Radlo. He wrote the book Principles of Cartel Disruption. He's an expert in leadership, innovation, and growth. Best known for creating with his partners a multi-billion-dollar category with healthy and humane specialty eggs with brands like Born Free and Eggland's Best. He's even done a little bit of negotiating with a guy that a few people may have heard of down south, Fidel Castro in Cuba. He's 28 years leadership experience, taking, like you said, a $13 million family business to over $100 million. And I think even more importantly, because some of the work we're doing in ownership succession management, with a 30-fold increase in enterprise value.
Wow.
Makes a huge difference when it comes in time for ownership transfer. He's good grief. He's a certified board governance fellow, master professional director, trusted advisor. We go on and on. So I will stop with that. Welcome, David.
David, you have quite the story, and I would like to talk a bit about the egg business. And how you got started. Who would think about $10 million in eggs, just that, but then to take it to $100 million. It's exciting. Welcome to the show, and welcome for being here to tell us your story. So go ahead.
I just want to, first of all, thank you, Mac and Suz. We appreciate it very, very much, the opportunity to be here. And the idea here is that if there's a way in which we can help people to improve their results, that's going to be a great satisfying day. The the nicest part of this is that it helped so many, that this is a story that helped people with sustainability. It helped, I had a lot of partners here, and the partners, although I was very fortunate to have it grow the way it did, I've had partners that actually grew as well, so we were able to create a billion-dollar category, and the way to do that really was to create a new pie. It is a way to take a look at the segments and the exciting growth prospects in a very small niche of a very large category. And we were able to do that with healthy and humane drivers, and we were able to take it and grow it and also benefit the fact from the healthiness of eggs and create a new category of specialty eggs. So when you go into the store, you'll have not just choices of buying white and brown eggs, but you'll have an opportunity to buy vegetarian fed and cholesterol conscious and cage-free and free-range organic, and even now we have more coming afterwards with pasture raised. So and to me it was just a great opportunity, and saw the opportunity to grow, and saw the opportunity to grow with niches and segments, and without a doubt this can be applicable to you as well.
So when you took over the business, did you grow up on a farm? I mean, where did the egg business started?
Yeah, you're talking to someone that was that got a call. I did work in the egg business growing up, but it was really on the side to help, and then was able to get a college degree and then a master's at NYU, and then was able to afterwards work for Citicorp and Chase and Consumer Product, and then from there I got a call saying, hey, here's a great opportunity to come back. There was really two businesses, and there was the consumer business here, and there was also a biotech business that was later sold to Waters Corporation. And we were able to be very successful to innovate, and we were able to come back and to grow it. So it really was about the opportunity to be able to sell the commodity segment out and be able to focus all the attention on the value-added piece, and as well as the export piece with Fidel Castro.
So let me back up a second. So you really had a lot of business sense when you started this. So you had strategies you already knew how to put in place. You know, a lot of entrepreneurs today, they make or do whatever they have, and they go, this is what I want to do, and hey, I'm going to start a business, and they have like no idea what they're doing, and it's like, all I want to do is make this or do this product. I'll worry about the other stuff later. You're telling me basically you had a lot of the strategies in place that you could use.
You have to continue to learn and grow, and you know, it is true. I did work on the predecessor ground launch of something that became a billion-dollar company called MoneyGram. And for the MoneyGram, there was a company called Express Money and Money Transfer. So, and we were able to learn a lot of those things there. Without a doubt, lessons in school and practical lessons at Citicorp and Chase certainly were quite helpful. And then, without a doubt, keep continuing on the learning path with books and people and advisors to get you to where you need it to be.
So again, I'm going to say to our audience, if you, with all that experience, you can see what is in this book. And I can now see that. I love just even in your first chapter, how you talk about setting up, how you're even going to market this. I mean, it's a great book. It's a great story.
I'm curious, how many, when you go out and you talk to other business owners, entrepreneurs, how many of them do you find have this ongoing learning attitude, mindset? Is that a majority of them, or a majority of them are just so focused on what it is that they came up with for an idea, and how do I get that to the marketplace, and how do I do this, and just almost like a single mindset versus a agile, growing, flexible mindset?
Well, it's one of these things where, in all fairness to a lot of entrepreneurs, that many of them are dealing with the pain point and the crisis that they're dealing with at that time. And so, although many of them, I'm sure, would really like to take a focused approach and grow and plan and have a board and take in and distill and use these techniques, a lot of them are singularly focused generally with the pain that they're going through at the time, whether or not it's in leadership, whether it's innovation or growth. And so part of what this book does is it allows to sit on the coffee table, so when they're actually going through different areas, whether or not it is planning, people, process, and strategy, whether or not it's a value proposition, whether or not it's sustainability, whether or not it's board leadership or exit planning or fundraising, then they can have a chapter that they can go to that they're not in it by themselves. They can start right here and get this great advice to help them spur ideas on.
Okay, so you took us right into the book, and that was great, because I was going to ask you, I think it's interesting that you call it a coffee table book. I'm not sure as many women or decorators would agree with that, but I know I would have it on my...
That yellow goes with a lot of things.
I would put it on my desk for sure. So
the idea is, in modern days, you can, you can take the yellow pages and take it off the coffee table, and you can put this on instead.
That's right. And the word cartel is decorative.
Well, that's what I want to ask. Where did you get this title, The Principles of Cartel Disruption? Why that title?
It is, businesses generally operate in a mentality of we need to control the market, and that's number one, is have control. And innovation is kind of counterintuitive to controlling the market. It kind of makes people, uneasy, and so doesn't disruption. So because it's not running a very large business in the current way that you're doing at it. You're one of these disruptors that are coming along with something new, and you're starting to get the buzz and the attention, and which is very threatening to the industry power structures. But it's the way you grow, and so you need to. A cartel, by definition, are a group of companies that get together to keep prices high and restrict competition. And that's either for an association of manufacturers or suppliers or companies. And you're doing the opposite. You're going out there and adding competition with great value-added products. You're meeting a niche and growing trends. mindset.
Okay.
And this is so true because, there's so many. I'm thinking about us. There is so much with Clearview that we talk about our software that we have, and there is competition out there. But the competition is they charge these astronomical prices, and you go, it really doesn't cost that much. Why are you doing that? So I get what you're saying. And it is interesting. It is food for thought, isn't it? So the title is, I didn't know if it had to do because of what you did down in Cuba. And I thought maybe that's what was going to come out of that. But
I think
it's Cuba itself is interesting, and obviously doing business with Castro, and that has more to do with he decided to take over the island, and his family run the island, and I've had numerous amount of discussions with Fidel Castro on entrepreneurship and how to go. But Fidel took the cartel away from the mob and all that, and took it over. And now his family still to this day really owns that island.
Well, I want to go into that a little more, but I do want to get into the book itself. You talk about there's 4 areas and 10 sections of this book, and you say to wrap around essentials, it is important to leave this book on your coffee table. Okay, let's talk about those 4 areas. You have market research value propositions, funding, operational excellence, people, process, strategy, sustainability, operation metrics for a new initiative and boards, and giving back, which I know is your favorite right now. But let's talk about, let's get into the operations of excellence. Is that where you were going to go, or were you going to go into another section? So, okay. So, what caused you to write this book? And I mean, you really give out a lot of information. I mean, you give out a lot. I mean, this book could be a requirement at a school.
Well, yeah, it is a Tufts University. There are professors that are interested in having this as certainly recommended, and some find it as essential reading.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a question. So the first chapter is winning value proposition. When you look at that chapter, there's a lot in there. There's a lot of research, studies, discussion. If you look at entrepreneurs, your typical entrepreneurs, how many of them are you thinking do that versus they have an idea, they think it's going to go, and so boom, they jump out into it. And then it seems like at some point in time, I mean, I loved the concept in that chapter, and so it seems like if they jumped into it, that at some point in time they need to revisit it. Is another way to look at it, right? You already got into it, you saw certain things, maybe you didn't do a lot of research, and you jumped. But that at some point in time, you really need to do this, because you need to get into things like how do you write, what this winning value proposition is, and how do you market that winning value proposition, and what's the venues that you use, and so how do you, is that something that should happen with entrepreneurs?
Yeah.
And
Repeatedly?
And how do you get them to do it?
Well, it's really essential, Matt. I don't know how I can say this. I don't want to advise people throw good money after bad, and I've seen it to the level of millions and hundreds of millions of times, where people get an idea in their head and they don't vet it at all. And there are times when you have an be good, and then within a year or two later, maybe the market changed. But and you need to somehow find a way, at least on an informal statistical research, by at least talking to 25 to 40 people in a target market. It doesn't have to be overly expensive. And the focus groups that I spent money on, were thousands of dollars. That's correct. They weren't hundreds of thousands of dollars to do that. But even I'll go on the low end. The cover of the book. There are 25 to 40 people that were surveyed on the cover of the book of the Principles of Cartel Disruption.
Whoa.
And you're the author did not choose this cover. But it's just but 80% chose this cover, so that's where we're at, because it's where the market is. It's not necessarily the echo effect of an entrepreneur. You want to distill, though, the market research into strong ideas, moderate ideas, and weak ideas. And then what you're really gaining for, and you'll see that in the charts as you go, is you're trying to get the features in good, better, and best, which is a diagram in the book on that, and it lists that. So you take all the features, and whether or not the feature of your product and your service is good, better, and best, and how you fit in the value matrix, and how you can give value to your customer. And I've seen this in the positive side in creating a multi-billion-dollar category with Eggland's Best and Cage-Free Free Range, and I've also been involved with things on the other side when we put etching on the egg, which the buyers loved. They thought it was the greatest thing in the world. So we're able to clear that hurdle. But the actual household consumers didn't really care that much. So it was a short-term thing. We knew it from our research that it would be great to expand the brands and expand the distribution. But long-term, we realized that there wasn't enough value to sustain it long-term. So you can use consumer research in so many different positive ways to get you to be able to hone in on your customer and the value proposition that you bring, and also what values or non-values that your competition's bringing. So you can analyze yourself versus your competition.
So there's so many different people who are entrepreneurs who start up businesses. One of the things I run into is where there are some of them where they've got these great ideas, and they're always thinking, but if you were to ask them to write it out, they might have, let's just say, a less than easy time of it. What do you think of the concept of using, Columbus, for example? I think we must have somewhere between 7 and 10 universities, colleges in the area, where you take to like a marketing class, you take to a manufacturing engineering class, some of these ideas, and work with the teacher to set up as a project something like this, where you evaluate it, and then like what are the questions you're going to ask, how do you design the survey, how do you write up what it is that they've told you. What do you think of that concept? Is that something that's good?
Yeah, no, it's great, and I've got experience with mentoring and teaching and judging contests at Tufts University, and it's great. To get students involved and really help in areas and get their practical experience into businesses that otherwise wouldn't have the opportunity to get this great skilled workforce. The students really looking to help out and learn is an absolute outstanding, great resource.
Okay. So you talk about 3 areas in your book that you detail. You talk about a lot. Let me just say, I'm going to pick out 3 areas in that you detail that so many businesses like to skip over or shorten the process, or if they do take the time to do it, they stick it in a drawer and they forget about it. So, but when I read about it, how you've written them, you don't write just, hey, you need to align a strategy with people, process, sustainability to drive customer excellence. Okay, you really talk about it and really try to align those elements. Why is that?
It's taking you through the process of what's needed, and now you're going from the stages of small companies to mid-sized companies to large companies. You will always have opportunities to improve with your people and your leadership. You will have opportunities to improve by reevaluating your planning and reevaluating your competitive analysis, for example. And you will have a great opportunity as you grow, because as you grow fast, then you run into situations where, you're not as efficient as you could be, and you're throwing away an awful lot of money. And I've seen this with fast-growing large companies. And one distributor that actually was throwing away $15 million a year.
Wow.
And it was just they weren't paying attention to their supply chain, and they weren't paying attention to goods that really didn't cut the mustard or came back, and they were just disappearing, and they didn't have any program to manage that. So, and there are a lot of ways to save money on the process improvement side. So, and then you've got to also take a look at both your economic sustainability and your financial sustainability. The nicest thing about sustainability is that it's not just really local, but also you have opportunities to really drive cost out of the system by focusing on reductions of power and using alternative sources. So there's a great processes that guides right in here that will help you as far as leadership and planning and process improvement and sustainability that you can use right now in your businesses.
So on the second piece of this, I'm going to go now to page, I'm even pointing the pages out here, 79, where you clearly understand and utilize your people resources, which, of course, Mac and I will say so many people don't do. They don't even know all that their people really do, or the people sometimes don't even know what the job description is, or so when you talk about it, it is a chapter. It's chapter 5. Clearly understand and utilize people resources. Why is that important?
It's very important because it's all about people and people working together and understanding the team. And the first thing that I generally do is through psychographics and intermetrics analysis, figure out where blind spots are. And what is a blind spot? Let me give you an example. Under stress, the author doesn't have empathy. And I thought everybody was like that. I thought everybody just didn't have any empathy. Well, that's not true. And so that was my blind spot until we were able to put in systems where if I happen to have a short fuse, that we'd bring in a human resource assistant that would come out and talk to someone, and I'd go back and apologize later. Now, people may have blind spots, like, for example, with CFOs. CFOs may not be very strong at reaching out and growing and sales calls and all that kind of stuff, where salespeople aren't necessarily great numbers people having to do with safety, caution, and rules. So it's important that a team understands each other's blind spots so they can respect each other and grow. The other thing, very straightforwardly, improved results from a positive behavior change are due to attitude, skills, and knowledge, plus goals, leads to a positive behavior change, which leads to improved results. And that formula's in there along with a lot of other great details, but that's what it's about. It's about you improving your results and also the organization improving your results and being able to see ways in which you can improve your results so you can reframe and then perhaps transform your behavior and your organization.
Okay, so you've got a lot of great information in here on a number of different subjects. It's the coffee book table.
Coffee table book.
Table book. Sorry, yeah, the coffee book table. How does an organization, how does an entrepreneur use this? For instance, I believe a lot in going in and doing initial assessments. Where are we right now? And then using that assessment to identify the greatest ROI focuses. All right. So, and then creating plans to achieve those. How does somebody, I mean, do you have like a certification program? Do you have, it should be a Cartel Disruption certification? Do you have, the other thing I think of is where you could have people getting together and talking about this, like forums, Cartel Disruption forums. But the first thing is, what do you recommend somebody does to be able to figure out where do I focus? Where do I go to first, second, third?
Okay, I guess it's really it's a two-tier question. The first tier is where they're going to focus is where their pain point and where their issues are. And by understanding the book and understanding where different areas are, then they can go right to it. If we're right now talking about an operational excellence area, by aligning strategy, people, processes, and sustainability to drive customer excellence. And that is through system improvement, process team structure, strategic planning, and people development. I personally am a certified, I'm both a certified management consultant in addition, and I'm a certified Metametrics analyst. And so what I'm trying to do in this book is share these ideas so that people can see. I am a big believer that using people that are very experienced and have been there and done that and bringing them in will save you a ton of money in helping you facilitate change. So that's something that I do. I do it as a board member. I do it as a management consultant. I'll do it as a speaker, where I would advise that you have people that will come in and help you with your issues, so you can fully get the value. But the first part is you have to be willing to accept that, number one, there are issues, and number two, that you're willing to get help, either self-help through like reading books like this, or a higher level of help by bringing someone into your organization to order to help you grow and get to the next level.
Well, I like that. One of the things that I find relative to managers, owners, is they don't know what their real issues are. They have certain pains that they see every day, And if they were to focus on those, they're not hitting the main actual pains of their business. I'm sure you've seen that where somebody has somebody that comes in their office every day, and that's the biggest pain that they have, according to them. And they're missing so many other more important pains.
Or ones that are causing that
or
pain.
ones that are causing that. And so part of it is to get them to be more objective and analytical about where their actual pains are.
So
Have you found that same
yeah,
thing?
so added on to that, David, do you have a checklist?
Yeah, well, there are two areas. First of all, you've got to find out. The number one issue is learning where things are. I led with intermetrics, and because finding out individual assessment's good for any type of leadership that anybody is doing and any team is doing. But the second level of that is whether or not we've got a proprietary technology called Dialogue, and I know there are other consumer software out there where you really want to survey the company based on the size and find out what the issues are. That really is number one, is to find out what those issues are and be open to finding out feedback from employees and managers in a free basis that, gee, if I participate, this is something that management is encouraging, and I'm not going to get fired by sharing my opinion. Because very honestly, a lot of these people in the organization have great value-added input, and they're really hoping that you reach out to them because they'd like to give you ideas. They'd like to make sure that whatever the issues are, but management has to be open to it.
Yeah, so agree. Okay, I'm going to change it back to, I told you you had 3 areas that you detailed, and you talked about aligned strategy, people, process, sustainability to drive customer excellence. You also talked about clearly understand and utilizing your people resources. And the other one that you go into great lengths about is goal setting. You know, a lot of times that, I talk to people and I say, do you have goals? What is your expectation? Where do you want to be in next month, next year, in 5 years? What is that? And there's so many people that go, I want success. What does that mean to you? I'd like to make money. I want the business to grow. What does that mean? You do a great job on goal setting. Why do you think it was so important? Is that what took you to your success?
Yeah, I'm a big believer you got to have reasonable, understandable, measurable, believable, and actionable goals. And that goes to both in business and in your life. So certainly goals, and to be able to set them, you're not going to go and just achieve greatness unless you have goals that you can set up. And if you're acceptable to you and the organization to shoot for the moon, by all means you can. But certainly reasonable, attainable goals are great ways to set for businesses. It also is a great way to tie in on compensation. It's also great for personal side of things. If you have a goal to lose weight, for example, what are you going to do? You're going to reduce your calorie intake. You're going to increase your exercise. How are you going to follow that up and measure it? Are you going to get on the scale once a week? So goals can be used, and goal setting is great to do the process in various areas of your life.
Okay. We could talk about a zillion things in this book. And I've read this book now twice, as there is so much for me to think about. And frankly, if you can take an egg business to $100 million plus, you're doing something right. So, I love all the stories. But I can't let you go without talking about your favorite time in Cuba or some of the wonderful things that you've done giving back. You said to me when you read it, you said, you gave me the book, you said, Karen, if you get too inundated, just go to chapter 11. I want you to read chapter 11, which I didn't do right away. I didn't, I went all through the book, and then I thought, oh my gosh, he has to write a whole book just on chapter 11. But you have so many neat things. I'd love you to tell some more stories. How did you get to Cuba, and what is one of your favorite stories?
Well, as far as Cuba, we were able to get there because under the Trade Sanction Reform Act by President Clinton through Congress, that you're able to trade and sell food and medicine to Cuba. Cuba wasn't really interested until there was a hurricane that came and the U.S. offered free aid. They turned it down, but Cuba said, we will buy. At which point, we sent a delegation over there from the U.S. Poultry and Egg Export Council, and I had an opportunity to be a part in the leadership of the delegation. And I developed a very strong multi-year relationship with Fidel Castro, and it was really, really great because Cuba now is in poultry and agriculture like the number 3 market in the world for U.S. And those billions of dollars for the industry that's helped so many people across this nation wouldn't be there, and now it's there today. I think one time that is noteworthy. I had some great, frank conversations with Fidel about religion, whether or not he believed in God, whether he thought about the Pope, and he reflected that one of his happiest times were that he was in Colombia going to law school in Colombia, and he said, David, I was going to do agribusiness and law and go to Harvard, but they didn't give me a scholarship. So I chose Columbia instead, and I lived on the Upper West Side, and we had an absolute fabulous time. And then he turned to me and he said, what do you think? I got a call, and I chose to come back to Cuba and start a revolution and took over the island. What do you think? Do you think I made the right decision? And I said, yes, Mr. President, I think you made the right decision. And he says, of course I did.
What are you going to say? Yeah.
So, and there were a lot of great, stories like that. And also it's really of a lesson that people that may have different political attitudes and beliefs can find economic in business and find common ground. And certainly that is something that many of us moderate, at times conservative business people found out in doing business with a staunch communist dictator.
So now talk about your 14-year-old that you helped to grow the business, his business. Yeah. That's an exciting one.
Yeah, no, that is SAFE is a great business started by Josh Dow and Sam Greenberg, and they're in Nashua. They go to Title I Nashua South High School. They were able to develop a way to put out fires using metamaterial and sound waves, so they can actually put fires out with their cell phone sound waves come out. And they've done a lot of experiences on that. They went and they had an opportunity to be in the finals for the competition down at NASA, and it was a great situation where they were able to compete against people from all over the world with the pitches and their business plan, and they were able to stimulate what they needed to stimulate. If you read everything about the pitch process in the book, you will see that when you're pitching, you're really focused on something called the croc brain, and it's about stimulating this old part of the brain. It's not always about stimulating the intellectual side, of running up the neocortex. It's about stimulating something through excitement. And if people find something boring, they don't want to pay attention to it. So every single word in a pitch is so important. Every way in which you gesticulate, every context of the word, and these guys absolutely nailed the pitch. Absolutely killed it. And there were judges from officers from the U.S. Navy. There was CEOs, and there were business cards being thrown at the boys saying that they wanted to invest in their business. And it was just a thrill, absolutely thrill, to be able to utilize these methods with 14-year-olds that ended up all getting the option of a college scholarship because they won a competition, in addition to the opportunity to launch a great business.
Well, David, we have to have you back because the pitch is one that is a segment all on its own. Because of that, you suggested in the book to read the book, The Pitch, and I did, and you and I had great conversation over that, and it was. I'm glad you brought it up. I'm glad you enticed us and the readers, our listeners, to hopefully get these books, because you recommend so many books in here, which I have gotten and read, because it's always nice to know where you're coming from. So that wonderful. Thank you. You have given us something to think about, and if any of our listeners have not read this book, Principles of Cartel Disruption by David Radlo, I encourage you to do so. Thank you, David, for being our guest today. You are wonderful. I have enjoyed getting to know you thoroughly before we even got to this point.
Thank you, Mac and Susie, and delighted to be here, and really quite excited about these opportunities and your prospects.
Well,
yes, I look forward to future conversations.
We wish you much success, and we'll be talking to you soon behind the door.